I don't see that as salvation. I'm still believing that salvation hasn't been shown yet. Christ has been shown and revealed, but that's it. And just because Christ has been revealed doesn't mean that you have salvation. It doesn't mean you have taken it. Let us start this off in Exodus chapter 14. Exodus 14. Now, we in Exodus chapter 14, and Brother Judah, when you got it, would you start reading that? We're going to do verses 8 through 12.
Exodus 14, 8 through 12. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And he pursued after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went out with an high hand.
Now remember, the people went out with a high hand. That means they went out with a strong hand that the Most High had with them. But you know why they went out with a high hand? It wasn't because of them leaving at that very moment. It was because of all the things that happened to the Egyptian society that led up to them. They left with strength because Egypt's strength had been weakened. That's why they left out with a high hand. Them getting a high hand was a process of time. It wasn't just that day. They just up and left. The Lord, with those plagues over time, caused Egypt to be weak, weakened their military, weakened their economic structure, weakened their agricultural system. He attacked their whole civilization. Go ahead.
But the Egyptians pursued after them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them encamping by the sea, besides Pihahiroth, before Baal-zephon. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them. And they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord.
Now, this is a people that have seen the hand of the Lord destroy a society to free them. And they are, quote unquote, happy because of that. They said they wanted no oppression no more. Didn't the Most High tell Moses when he visited him in Midian, I've heard their cry? And the oppression that they cry because of. This is a people who cry and say enough. So the Most High agrees, and now this is the time to start to fulfill the promises on Abraham. And he brings them out, and they have a happiness to them, but yet when they look behind them, Pharaoh was chasing them. So with this freedom, the Most High still didn't just utterly destroy the ability of their bondage to chase after them, if you will. It chased them. Pharaoh and that army represent going back to what the Most High just freed us from. And they were afraid. But in that fear, people sometimes don't know what to do. And people will give up without faith. Go ahead, Brother Judah.
And they said unto Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness.
So, do we all see that they actually said, man, we said then it was better to leave us alone? See, what I'm telling y'all is this. Moses came with salvation from Yah for the people, but the salvation came first in preaching to the people. It came first in preaching because he said, go back and tell them something. Well, Most High, how I'm going to prove to them that you sent me when they start asking, well, who is this God? You had to come say something for someone to ask you something. Well, who is this? I mean, what is this all about? We're supposed to be free. How is this freedom going to come about? Moses preached unto the people, him and his brother Aaron. And if he had to, he had the power from the Most High to give some signs that the people would see. And that would strengthen what? What he's saying. He would just rather come and say, yo, the Lord said it's time to go. All right, we've been waiting for this. Let's go. But the unbelieving heart and the heart that's been stuck in oppression for so long will be skeptical. Like, what you talking about? It's all we know. Now who can fight Egypt? It's almost like in Revelation, who can make war with the beast? Who can whoop on Egypt? Who's going to take us from Pharaoh's hand? So Moses, in his preaching, was given the power to do some works that would cause the preaching to be validated and hopefully develop faith in the hearts of the people who heard what Moses was saying the Most High sent him to do. But now that we have freedom and we right on the verge of walking into the quote-unquote kingdom, we still see our oppressor and the bondage chasing us to bring us back into it. And instead of saying, Moses, let's stand and fight, or let's run and get away from it further if we can, the conversation is, we should have just stayed. I'm telling you right now that a plan for salvation has been revealed through Jesus Christ and through his apostles. And there are people who claim they are happy and want to see this thing happen and want to be a part of it and want to leave oppressors in the bondage of this culture. But when they see the culture and the bondage it has chase them every day in their life, it starts to weigh on their hearts. And people start to think it's probably better to not go the way that the Messiah is pointing us. And it's probably better just to stay in this life. Because it's scary. And then when you start to talk about it more and the reality of it hit, the reality of it was you was a people who don't have any military training or anything, and you got one of the greatest armies in the world right behind you. We are a people who have not produced. We have no skill in production per se. We want to learn these things. We want to learn how to produce, and we want to learn how to be self-sufficient.
And here, if I can add.
Go ahead, Brother Jew.
Only one that heard the voice of God talking was Moses.
That's right.
Everyone else is operating off of what Moses was telling them.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So that takes a leap of...
That take a leap of what?
Of faith, right?
A leap of faith.
And so like now, everyone... There ain't nobody hearing Christ come down in your living room and tell you each individually this is what you're supposed to do. So, you know, it's something to consider. That fear come in. Is that really what we're supposed to do? Or we really, you know...
That's right. We see our bondage chasing us, and all we see in front of us is a hard way to get to escape. The way to escape from bondage is hard. It is. Especially if we try to do it according to the flesh. So we want the Spirit of the Lord to guide us like he guided our fathers out of Egypt. Pillar of cloud by day and pillar of fire by night, which was assurance that the angels was with us. But he gave us other signs to let us know that cloud and that pillar is with you. We have to see it and experience it and pay close attention to what we're dealing with. All they had was a seed in front of them. You got oppression chasing you, and to escape to freedom, all you see is an impossible ocean across. Yeah. And all the things that self-sufficiency and breaking away from the culture of global capitalism presents, it all seems difficult to our eyes and to the hearing of our ears. Everything is going to take to do it seem like a sea in front of us. We looking at the other side of it, which is a kingdom with peace and love and joy. We see that because it's been prophesied about. But the gulf between where we at and that end result is like the Red Sea. And everybody's standing there looking at the oppression chasing them and are afraid. And some are thinking like Moses and possibly Aaron, hold on. Don't be so quick to give up. And some are thinking like other people in the congregation was thinking. It's probably better if we was never in this situation. Some people will regret having ever heard the truth of the gospel preached to them. Because they can't do it. And it's not that God is not willing, but we as individuals may or may not simply be willing. It's all on us. He has done his part. The sacrifice has been made. He has been risen from the dead. The word has been preached and has been put in books for us common people at an 8th grade level of reading, we could read this thing.
And it been other people done did it.
And others have done it.
Sacrifice.
It's on us. They were afraid and considered it was possibly better that they had never left. That they basically what they're saying is probably better that Moses had never came. That the Lord had never sent Moses to free us. That he had never did to Egypt what he did. Because our situation seems so impossible right now, we starting to regret having left. Because all we see is the possibility of death. People like, man, you talking about socialism, you talking about communism. Man, people might want to hurt you because of that. People, that's dangerous. People that, I always like to say, yeah, possibly. That comes with the territory. Anything you do, I could be in a gang, and if I'm with this gang, this other gang might want to kill me. Especially if we make a large imprint and our name becoming famous, these other gangs might want to take some of our heads off. Okay. All right. Everyone talks about the danger of doing it. But I don't hear a lot of people mention the dangers of not doing it. What are the dangers of not doing it? What would have been the dangers of the children of Israel staying in Egypt and being totally amalgamated and disappearing in Egyptian culture? Do you know what that would have led to? Possibly us not having the ability to do what we're supposed to do right now. Because the Most High had a plan with that particular people. He could do what he want, but I'm just saying, what if they didn't? What if Moses, when he was afraid, would have turned back and pulled a Jonah and bounced from going to Egypt? Left Midian and headed towards Britain or something. Come on, brothers and sisters. Let us move on, Brother Judah. Let us go now. We're going to come back to Exodus 14, but let's go to Galatians 4. Let's go to Galatians 4. See, the children of Israel were freed from bondage. Not only was their body in bondage, but even the spirit of the people was in bondage, because the heart of the people was heavy because of the burdens and the bondage of oppression of Egyptian society. They were a segregated, low-wage, forced to work under harsh conditions people. That's what they were in Egyptian society. Galatians 4, verses 3 through 7, Brother Judah.
Even so we, when we were children, were in bondage under the elements of the world.
See, our bondage is not different. It's just more complex. It's an even more complex bondage than Egyptian bondage, because the bondage we have is a bondage that the whole world, it doesn't have nothing to do with your ethnicity. The bondage we all are under is a bondage that is after every man, bond or free, rich or poor. Yes. Go ahead.
But when the fullness of the time was come, God sent forth his Son, made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. And because ye are sons, God hath sent forth his Spirit of his Son into your hearts, crying, Abba, Father. Wherefore thou art no more a servant, but a son. And if a son, then an heir of God through Christ.
See, the nation of believers is like a son. This letter, he said we were children. And then he said, and if you are this, then you are a son. He's still talking to the we, though. The we is a son. And so we can understand that. Let us right quick back up to Exodus 4. Let's read verses 22 to 23. Exodus 4, verse 22 to 23.
So not a son as an individual.
So not the son as an individual.
Collective.
But the son as a collective. Yes.
4 and 22?
Yes, 4, verse 22 and 23. Exodus 4, verse 22 and 23.
And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, Thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto thee, Let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son.
Now, I'm going to slay your literal son if you don't let my literal son go.
Even thy firstborn.
Who was his son? It was the people. The whole nation as one was his son.